boys and girls, welcome back to art. I hope that you had fun creating your portraits here with our lines and our shapes and our color. And so now we're coming back. We're going to finish this project today, and we're going to be using some complementary colors. So I have right here, here's my portrait, but then I also have these complementary colors. These are colors that look good together. So when we think about complementary colors, they're ones that are actually across from each other on the color wheel, and we don't mix them because if we mix them, they actually make brown. But when we put them side by side, it does make them look brighter and kind of bring out those colors, and they look good together. So violet or purple looks good and is a complementary color with yellow. Same thing with orange and blue. That's why, like UTSA, we have orange and blue. Those are complementary colors. They look good together. So, and red and green, think of Christmas. We use those colors together. So when you're looking at it, you can use colors that are across from each other that are complementary. It'll really bring out your colors. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, boys and girls, is complementary colors. Colors that are across from each other on the color wheel and that look good together, not mixing them together. So we're going to use those complementary colors to actually paint our hair with watercolors. The reason we're using watercolors is, one, we've put wax, which is our crayon, on our paper, and when we try to paint over with water, the wax and the water don't mix. They tend to resist each other. So that's one reason why, but also I know that a lot of times watercolors are something we have more in common at home as opposed to some of the other paints. So we're trying to use some things, materials that you guys might have at home. So I'm going to be using my color wheel to create my colors that go in between here. So when I was using this, remember we talked about the rainbow. You could start with any color that you wanted, but you had to go in order of the rainbow. So I actually started with indigo, and then I went purple, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and back to indigo when I created my hair here. But now I'm actually going to use the color wheel to find my complementary colors here. So when I look at my color wheel and I say I know I use blue violet, my color that's across from it, so if I go straight across, is my yellow orange. So we don't have yellow orange though, boys and girls, in our paint palettes here that we use. But we do have yellow and orange. So when we make yellow orange, we're actually going to mix these two colors. But we don't mix them in our palette on here. We're just gonna mix them on our paper. Now, you can use this side. This is what I also use sometimes. And my students mix it on the paper as opposed to here so that we're not making a mess of our paints that people use. So I'm actually going to be using yellow orange, and for this time I'm going to show you, I'm going to make yellow orange right here on the side of my palette. So I can just use this, and then you can use like a napkin to wipe it out. Before I go into my orange though, I do wash off my brush and I get some of that orange paint and I add it into my yellow. But see, I want a little bit more yellow to it. So again, I can just wash off my brush and I go and get some of my yellow paint and I add it in there to make my yellow orange, which is gonna look really nice with that blue violet color, my indigo color. I'm going to use it to paint between those colors that I've already created with the crayon. The nice part about the crayon being on there is that it acts as a barrier to my paint, so it'll make it stop instead of traveling across my paper because it's really wet. So I want to make sure that I'm also painting all my white spaces, and I'm going to fill in, and look, over these I can just paint right over that wax instead of trying to paint around it. I'm just going to paint right over that wax right there instead of trying to paint around my stars. And I'm just gonna go and use that yellow orange to paint my white spaces in my hair. But now I wanna make sure that I clean up mine, so I'm gonna use a napkin to clean off my palette here. I've cleaned off my palette, but now I'm gonna move to my next color, which is purple. So I'm gonna go back to my color wheel and I'm gonna look at what color is across from it. So I know violet is the same as purple, and I'm gonna go right across, and my complementary color is yellow. So I know that I'm gonna be using just yellow this time when I am painting in my purple area. Now, I'd say you can come and paint through the wax, but I also like to just paint and go around it so that I keep that nice bright colors. But again, when I'm painting over it, boys and girls, those circles are done with wax, which helps the paint from traveling into my dots. And if you notice, I'm holding my paintbrush right down here over the right above the silver part like a pencil, and I'm just barely touching my paper. I don't need to spread it out. I don't want my brush spanning out like that. I want to keep my brush where I'm barely touching that paper. I don't need to damage it and hurt it, so I'm just barely touching and going around those purple dots. So again, you're going to be using your complementary colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. And I am attaching this color wheel onto the your folder so that you can use it. So my next color I have is red. So I'm going to be finding my complementary color for red. So I'm going to look at this. My red is right here. I'm going to find its complementary color, which is green, like Christmas. So I'm going to use green for my next color. So then I'm going to paint with green, and you see when my color is really light like that, that means I've added a lot of water. So I'm going to take and add more paint, less water if I want to get my colors nice and dark. And again, we don't want to leave any white space when we're painting. We're trying to get our painting to look like it's complete. So paint with your complementary colors. We'll come back and talk about your colors and see where we are when we're done. So now I've gotten to, I did red, and so I have my complementary color with green, so my Christmas colors here. Now I'm going to do my orange, and I think of a school when I think of these complementary ones, and it's, so what would be my complementary color with orange? Okay, so I'm going to look at my color wheel and I go orange over to blue. So I have orange and blue like our UTSA Roadrunners. So you can see, boys and girls, I've finished up here with our art project. I've been using complementary colors. Those are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, like purple and yellow, red and green, blue and orange, and then even our intermediate colors. You should have finished doing this. Now, remember, I've talked about that if you don't have some of these materials at home, you know, you don't have to use paints. Instead of the paints, you could have used markers, and you could have used crayons in between. So you could have done markers and crayons to show the two different kinds of colors and values in colors, but also still doing complementary colors. So hopefully you had fun with this and you've finished it. Send me a picture so that I can give you credit, and also if you need the paper, let me know. And I hope you have a great week, boys and girls.